As I discussed this week's worship service with Pastor Jeff, I let him know that I planned to tell the children our godly play story that we call The Great Family, and he asked if I would be willing to offer this story as our sermon this week. I'm happy to do that because this is one of the foundational stories of our Christian faith and tradition. The Great Family is the story of Abram and Sarai, whose names were changed to Abraham and Sarah, and who followed God's leading even when they weren't quite sure where they were going, and even though God's promise to them seemed impossible. I don't know if you're a fan of the quiz show Jeopardy, but just coincidentally, this past Wednesday evening, the final Jeopardy hint of the day was, he tells his son not to worry about the lamb for the offering. God will provide it. None of the three contestants knew the right question. Of course, I'm sure you know that the question is, who was Abraham? One of my favorite verses from the book of Genesis is about Abram. In chapter 12, we read, "So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Abram journeyed on by stages toward the Negeb." Who among us has not at times felt a little unsure of where exactly God was leading us? Yet we too journey on by stages, perhaps even drawing inspiration from this story, following in the footsteps of our spiritual forebears. Today's story gives a broad outline of the lives of Abraham and Sarah and introduces Isaac and Rebekah. This is part of our core curriculum for children. It doesn't go into the details of their lives. We have more advanced stories based on the lives of both Abraham and Sarah. So to be a Jeopardy champion, you would have to know this story and also the fuller story of Abraham's life. Still, this is the broad outline of their lives, and it's important to contemplate our own life story as we listen to this story. So this is a video for all ages. If you are an adult, I ask you to listen with an open heart and mind. Please do not try to pretend to be a child as you listen. Adults are never very good at that. Sometimes adults even act out being silly or destructive or disrespectful, as if they think that's the way a child would act, showing that they really don't understand children very well. Children may act that way, but never without a reason. By acting that way, they are actually denying the dignity and earnestness of children who are working hard every day, most often through what we call play, to understand and to grow and to integrate the same spiritual truths and existential limits we all face. So please just listen with an open heart and mind. At the end, I'll have some questions for you. So if you are ready, if you are really ready, we can begin. This is our desert bag. So many wonderful and important things happen to the people of God in the desert that we need to know what it's like. I can't fit the whole desert here at my kitchen table, so this is just a small piece of the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. It's always moving, so it's hard to know where you are. There's very little water, and so you get thirsty, and you could even die if no water is found. Almost nothing grows in the desert, and so there is almost nothing to eat. In the daytime, it's hot, and the sun scorches your skin. In the night, it's cold, When the wind blows, the sand stings when it hits you. People wear many clothes to protect them from the sun and the blowing sand. The desert, oh yes, it's a dangerous place. People do not go into the desert unless they have to. When the great flood was over, all the creatures spread out to the four corners of the earth to fill it up with life again. They often gathered along the rivers. People lived in small villages and then later in cities. One of the most ancient and greatest cities was the great city of Ur. In the city of Ur, people believed in many gods. There was a god of the sky, the clouds, the water, and the land. The world seemed alive with gods. But there was one family who believed that there was only one God, and that all of God was in every place. They did not yet know that, but that is what they believed. Abram and Sarai were part of that family. When it came time to move to a new place, they were not sure that God would be there, and they wondered what this new place would be like. They walked toward Haran with their sheep and their donkeys. Even the old people and the children went too. They slept in their tents at night. In the daytime, the river showed them the way and gave them and their animals water to drink. It took a long, long time. Finally, they met some people coming out from Haran, and they knew that they were almost there. And then, finally, they were there. Sometimes Abram would go out to the edge of the desert and look out across the sand and into the sky. And then God came so close to Abram, and Abram came so close to God, that Abram knew what God wanted him to do. God wanted Abram and Sarai to move on again to another new place. They did what God wanted. Abram and Sarai walked into the desert to the west of Haran toward Canaan. They went with all their sheep, their tents, and many helpers. Abram's brother's son Lot went with them. This time there was no river to show them the way or to give them water to drink. They finally came to a place called Shechem. Abram climbed a hill and prayed to God, and God was there. Abram built an altar to mark the place. And then they went on. Next, they came to a place near Bethel. Again, Abram prayed, and God was there also. And Abram built an altar to mark this place too. Then they went on to Hebron to make their home near the oaks of Mamre. One night, God brought Abram outside. He looked up into the sky, and God came so close to Abram, and Abram came so close to God, that Abram knew what God was saying. You will become the father of a great family, and Sarai will be the mother. The members of this great family will be as many as there are stars in the sky and grains of sand in the desert. Abram laughed. He and Sarai were very old. God's promise sounded impossible. But God said to change their names anyway. Abram was to be Abraham, and Sarai was to be called Sarah. One day, 3 strangers came out of the desert. Abraham was sitting by his tent. He invited them in, and Sarah mixed 3 measures of flour, which is quite a lot. She gave them bread and meat to eat, and milk and water to drink, as was their custom. They told Abraham that he and Sarah would have a son. Sarah was standing by the tent and heard them. She laughed. They were too old. The 3 strangers went on their way, and do you know what happened? Abraham and Sarah had a son. They laughed again, so they named the baby Laughter. In their language, the word for laughter is Isaac. When the boy grew, old Sarah, who was by then very old and full of many years, died. They buried her in the cave near the trees. Abraham was lonely. He missed Sarah very much, but he had one more thing that he had to do. He sent his most trusted helper back to the land of his people to find a wife for Isaac. Abraham's helper stopped by a well in the evening. A young woman named Rebecca was there. She gave him water to drink and helped him give water to his animals. And then she invited him home to meet her family. He told her family about Abraham and Sarah and the great family. Rebecca was as full of courage as she was kind. She decided that she wanted to be part of that great family. And so they went across the desert, past Shechem, past Bethel, and on toward Hebron. Isaac saw them coming and went out to meet them. Then Isaac and Rebekah were married. Old Abraham was now very old and full of years. He too died and was buried next to Sarah in the cave by the oaks of Mamre. Then Isaac and Rebekah had children, and their children had children, and those children had children, and this went on for thousands of years until your grandparents had your parents, and your parents had you, and now you, too, are part of this great family, whose members number as many as the stars in the sky and the grains of sand in the desert. Now I wonder, what part of this story do you like the best? What part of this story seems like it's about you? Or where do you find yourself in this story? I wonder if there is any part of this story that you would prefer that we leave out. And if we did that, I wonder if we would have all the story that we need. This is the story of the great family.
Hello, hello, White Plains. This is Stephany Graham from Peekskill, coming to you on this glorious day to say thank you so much, especially to your council for deciding to donate a portion of your peacemaking offering to the Sweetwater Cultural Center. It has truly been a blessing to serve as a board member for Sweetwater. Last month, we had the grounds blessed by Indigenous spiritual leaders from all over the world. The energy was incredible. We're working on 2 additional events. One, a panel discussion on the truth behind Thanksgiving, and a new moon ceremony in December in partnership with Spirit Talk Connections. We certainly hope that you'll be able to join us for one or perhaps both of those events. Just want to say thank you so much. The possibilities are endless for all that can happen at Sweetwater. We're building networks, forming relationships, and we thank you for your commitment to supporting us in that endeavor. Have a wonderful day. Look forward to seeing you at one of those events, perhaps very, very soon. Take good care and stay well. Goodbye for now.
It's a blessing to be with you again in a spirit of prayer. I first want to begin by saying a word of gratitude for all who have reached out to Will and I during this time of loss in our family. And I have felt very much connected to all of you during this time, though I haven't been offering these prayers during our worship. And I'm glad to be back. I today want to offer a prayer or a time of prayer looking forward to Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. I am offering this prayer from a sacred spot on the campus of Stony Point Center. It's underneath a beautiful red maple tree where we have mushrooms growing, and where an Indigenous teacher of the Mi'kmaq peoples, Evan Pritchard, has tied 2 prayer ribbons, or bunches of prayer ribbons on the tree. When we move into prayer, I will leave a time of silence focused on these prayer ribbons that are now moving in the breeze. And then I will read a poem from U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo called Praise the Rain that will invite you into a time of praise and prayer. Praise that God carries us through all seasons, through seasons of loss, through seasons of life, and everything in between. A word on the prayer ribbons first, though. There are 7 strands in these bunches of prayer ribbons. They represent the 7 directions. One of the strands is invisible. They represent east, south, north, west, the sky above, the earth below, and the center, or the invisible, or the infinite. So as you focus on the prayer ribbon fluttering in the breeze, keep in mind your prayers in each of those directions. And then I will send us off with a prayer of praise and benediction as you head back out into this week. Peace be with you. Praise the rain, the seagull dive, the curl of plant, the raven talk. Praise the hurt, the house slack, the stand of trees, the dignity. Praise the dark, the moon cradle, the sky fall, the bear sleep. Praise the mist, the warrior name, the earth eclipse, the fired leap. Praise the backwards upward sky, the baby cry, the spirit food. Praise canoe, the fish rush, the hole for frog, the upside down. Praise the day, the cloud cup, the mind flat, forget it all. Praise crazy, praise sad, praise the path on which we're led. Praise the roads on earth and water, praise the eater and the eaten. Praise beginnings, praise the end. Praise the song and praise the singer. Praise the rain, it brings more rain. Praise the rain, it brings more rain. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Save us from the time of trial, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.